The inbox is overflowing, the noise is constant, and the urge to pack up and disappear to somewhere pristine feels like a survival instinct. We treat nature as a therapeutic stage. It is a quiet, empty space where we can decompress from the grind of the modern economy and find a little peace. This desire was coded into law through the 1964 Wilderness Act. By protecting spaces specifically for human recreation and aesthetic enjoyment, the act cemented a cultural ideal called the romantic sublime. This chart shows the relationship between global carbon emissions and the rise of international ecotourism. As millions travel across the globe to reach these remote, untouched getaways, the emissions required to reach them skyrocket. Treating the wild as a beautiful backdrop for self-discovery creates a harsh paradox. We cause severe ecological damage just to access the places we claim to revere. Skeptical. Maintaining the illusion of an untouched wild requires a legal fiction known as terra nullius, the belief that the land belonged to no one before settlers arrived. Creating a pristine vacation destination required the systemic erasure of the indigenous populations who had already lived in and managed those environments for thousands of years. Pristine wilderness is a deliberate, constructed invention of settler colonialism. Seeking solace in a landscape we believe to be empty requires us to ignore the history of its emptying. Our modern comfort in these spaces is built on the same foundations as the original displacement. To clear land for profit, extractive economies use a process called ontological displacement. This involves deliberately unthinking and dismantling the local, sacred relationships people have with their environment. You can see the stark physical reality of this in the Indonesian oil palm industry. Diverse native forests are forcefully replaced by profitable exotic monocultures. By ripping out the complex web of local life, aggressive expansion turns a living ecosystem into a sterile, quantifiable resource. This process has deep historical roots. During the Spanish conquest of the Andes, indigenous people revered intricate, sacred objects in places known as huaca. Colonizers reclassified these complex connections to the earth as primitive or ugly. This allowed them to destroy the artifacts and melt them down into gold bricks to be shipped to Europe. Whether it is an Indonesian plantation or an Andean gold mine, treating land purely as property requires erasing the humanity of the people who view the earth as kin. Severing our roots from the natural world to feed boundless consumerism sets off a devastating chain reaction. As industrial agriculture pushes deeper into wild boundaries, it forces humans and wildlife into unnatural proximity. This drives the spillover of zoonotic diseases into humans. Then there is the psychological toll. Researchers call it solastalgia, the deep anxiety and grief people experience when they watch their familiar home environments destroyed. The recent Australian bushfires laid this grief bare. Massive swaths of ancient eucalyptus forest burned to the ground, serving as a bleak physical marker of biological systems pushed beyond their limits. The toxic waste produced by our demand for cheap goods and global travel is disproportionately dumped into the backyards of marginalized communities, fueling environmental racism. The privileged quest for an exotic paradise directly constructs a toxic, uninhabitable nightmare for oppressed communities and the broader biosphere. The cure to this extractive worldview is a return to relational ecology. The Anishinaabe use the concept of Mino Man-nam Dazawin, the art of living well by maintaining balanced, reciprocal relations with non-human life. This takes shape in governance structures like the seasonal round. Instead of forcing the ecosystem to fit a rigid economy, human society adapts its size, institutions, and harvesting practices to match the natural cycles of the environment. These blockades uphold ancient natural law, treating the land and water as living relatives rather than political obstacles. Reclaiming this kinship can happen anywhere. It starts by recognizing the suppressed agency of the original landscape beneath the concrete of our urban centers. In Chicago, restoring the river's indigenous name, Secaucus, revives the landscape's relational identity and reminds us of the plant life that once defined its shores. Ecological justice recognizes the land, the water, and the animals as a deeply peopled landscape of equal kin. Spiritual connection to nature does not require flying across the world to walk on an exotic beach. Real, durable connection is found in stillness and patience. It comes from recognizing the interwoven roots of life and consequence present in our own immediate surroundings. Healing the earth requires us to stay and embrace our deep, permanent responsibility to the land and the marginalized communities right where we stand.